Hey, what's going on? JD here, and this is the Daily JD. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share this video, let people know that you are here joining in the conversation. So thanks again for tuning in. As always, guys, please remember hit that like button, and again, share that video. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm kind of repeating myself here, but hey, good to see you, Pete. Glad that you are first here. Thanks for joining us today. Busy night last night. First off, I just kind of want to apologize for those of you who tuned into the live stream of me editing the Greta Van Fleet photographs. Unfortunately, there was an audio problem, and at the end of the day, essentially, there was no audio for the track. Unfortunately, nothing was said in chat, or I didn't notice, and ultimately no sound. So anybody who watched it on replay, and there was a fair few of you, no audio. So I apologize for that. And for that, I'm just going to kind of run over some stuff today that I experienced with my sort of first up close first concert shoot with that camera. We'll go through some of that stuff. I will also follow up with what happened with YouTube and the Calgary Sun, where that went, how it all sort of went down, and yeah, it's kind of interesting in those regards. So for those of you who watched the stream yesterday, know that I was a tiny bit fired up because the Calgary Sun had essentially posted a 8.5-minute video based on an incident that happened at the correctional facility here in town, and basically showed this individual getting murdered. It's something that's currently before trial. I had complained, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I tried to reach out to Team YouTube. They finally got a hold of me just kind of prior to I was starting work. I sort of texted them back and forth. I'm like, hey, here's the video. Here's a news article showing you exactly what happened. So they had some context for this video. And YouTube's actions kind of baffled me at this point. They age-gated it. So, I mean, that's a big plus in the sense that anybody under the age of 18 that isn't, signed into YouTube can't watch the video. So you have to sign in and, be 18 and, all those kind of things that YouTube makes you jump through to get that. But all they did was age gate it. They left it up there. And it's kind of really a big surprise to me. I kind of get the concept that, it's the news, it's reporting the news. But again, with this video, I feel it's completely unnecessary to post something like this. Just saying that this is what happened, is enough. People watch this in the courtroom, and, it was whatever the, disturbing or whatever they saw. But beyond that, like having the whole thing play out in entirety is absolutely kind of ludicrous to me. And what baffled me as well, I think, is the fact that YouTube left it up. I'm just kind of a little bit shocked about that. I am surprised with all the things that YouTube does and all the things that YouTube, shuts down and demonetizes and deletes, that they leave that up. Now, I don't know if it was because it's an established news agency. The Calgary Sun is a division of Post Media, and Post Media is one of the two major media corporations that essentially run media services in Canada. And me talking about this, to be honest, because I do sell stuff to Post Media. I'm criticizing people that buy stuff from me. I essentially potentially put that, but I don't care, to be honest, at the end of the day. But it just blows my mind. Number one, it just blows my mind that, again, that this gets put up. And number two, it kind of blows my mind that YouTube essentially does nothing about it, and it blows my mind. YouTube, as Nick, and it's good to see you in the chat, Nick, that they were trying to clean up the space. They're trying to make it more advertiser friendly, all these kind of things. And at the end of the day, they leave something like that up. It just blows my mind. And I mean, let's be honest. If it is acceptable I'll put it this way. If it is acceptable to put up a video on YouTube where you watch somebody take another human being's life in its entirety, what can we not do on YouTube? And that's a serious question. Like, what really is left, you know? I really don't understand essentially, you know, how that's, you know, how that works out. I just, it kind of blows my mind. I just don't see, to me, there's no benefit. I mean, I understand, you know, sometimes you will see video, especially when incidents break out, and you'll get kind of a sense of it. But, you know, senselessly, they don't show. Like, I mean, even things like, we'll take, for example, the Las Vegas shooting. You know, saw a lot of video, bullets flying, a lot of people getting scared, you know, people running around. But generally, you did not see somebody getting killed, the act of getting killed. You know, it gave you a sense of the panic. And I understand that that's newsworthy. And that, you know, that's bad enough to watch, it is. But, I mean, to watch somebody physically choke somebody out and then choke the living life out of them, I just don't understand why somebody, number one, would want to watch that. You know, it's kind of scary. Path left travel. Murder is worse than nipples. Absolutely. I mean, how are you so upset about nudity or partial dress, or, you know, as they call them, you know, titty streamers and all those kind of things, when you're going to allow something like that to, you know, sit in your space? You know, again, YouTube's not my company. It's not my business. It's not how I go, but they send very, very mixed messages. I feel, you know, it is kind of a crazy thing. And I mean, you know, it's absolutely crazy. And as Nick is indicating here, a dead body in the forest, catalyst for demonetizing everyone, but they'll leave up a full murder. Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's crazy. And I mean, you talk about, you know, some of the things that were said after the fact, you know, that, you know, with the Jake Paul thing, or sorry, Logan Paul thing, that, you know, with the suicide forest, that, you know, there was a lot of people, you know, saying like, this is extremely disrespectful for the family, you know, showing a dead body, you know, even though they blurred out the faces, and did, you know, all those kind of things. And they were talking about that. But at the end of the day, they leave this kind of stuff up, and it just, you know, kind of, you know, makes me wonder. And I mean, I would love, I'm just going to say it right now, I would love Philip DeFranco, and I tweeted him. I never heard anything back. You know, kudos to Team YouTube. They did get back to me, and I did communicate with them last night at work. But, you know, and you know, I'll talk about that in a second. I'll just kind of pull out my phone because it will help sort of refresh my memory, or grab it over from the desk where it's gone. But I would like Philip DeFranco to kind of, you know, take this on and, you know, talk about it. I would love for him to do that, but I've been unable to grab his attention. To me, that's a story. And obviously I feel, you know, strong enough about it that I've talked about this now for 2 days, you know, sort of as things have unrolled. But like I said, at the moment, it is essentially age gated. You know, so basically, I had sent a tweet to Team YouTube initially. I said, hey, basically, what's up? Like, why are you guys letting this murder occupy your space? Why are you allowing this to sit here? How long does it take for you to review? Because I knew, you know, I had complained, I reported it. I was wondering how long the review process took. I knew that if lots of people were not, you know, sort of reporting it, that it might not get noticed as fast. Eventually they said, hey, we just saw your tweet. Sorry, we missed it. We're getting back to you. That was basically 12 hours later. I said, as soon as they sent that tweet to me, I got it immediately. I sent them a tweet back. They obviously didn't see it. They sent me another message saying, hey, you know, follow us so we can send you a direct message. I'd already followed them. They'd already sent me a direct message at that point. So there's a little miscommunication, and that's understandable because obviously there is a team of people that deal with that Twitter account in particular. So you can't really fault them for that. So I sent them the links. I sent them the links to the news articles about it being played in court. And then ultimately at the end of the day, they said they'd move it on to their team and they'd take a look at it. And their decision was to age-gate. So, it would be, it's just kind of really, really interesting that is what they chose to do. Now I'm confused with YouTube. Yesterday, I was angry at the Calgary Sun, and I was confused why you would post something like that. Again, I just can't imagine being in this city, walking around and having, one of my family members murdered, and that the fact that I honestly have it in my head that everybody's watched it because the newspaper put it out, to the world in its entirety, would make me feel sick. I would feel I would feel like a victim as, sort of that person. I mean, it's just, it's not something, it's hard enough to lose somebody in your family, suddenly and especially violently that, it just absolutely baffles my mind that they would do such a thing. So, I mean, and again, fast forward to what sort of transpired. I mean, I'm glad that they age-gated it, so young children are not watching this. But at the end of the day, I question why would you not take it down, YouTube? So my question, YouTube, is why haven't you taken this video down? Is it okay, in your words, then, to leave something up because it's murder, and that's fine? I just don't understand. I really do not understand. Again, very critical of the Calgary Sun. I think they could have, shown a clip, basically, but not show it in its entirety. Basically maybe show, the initial attack or engagement, and then basically break to some letters saying the attack lasted for over 8 minutes, and then, and, the victim, subdued to his injuries, at hospital later on, or however, you want to word it, and make it a very short clip. But that was not how it's done. So again, it's, I wish, kind of somebody would catch on to that. Like I said, if you do have me on Twitter, you will see there's a bunch of tweets in between there, obviously, because last night I was working in Greta Van Fleet, and that's my priority, is work. So, later on down, Philly D is tagged in those. If you just click tweet and replies, just kind of either add on to the conversation or, just want to get somebody's attention and have them talk about it. Because I think, as a whole, as YouTubers, as a community, we've kind of said, okay, like, we don't want dirt bags like, Logan Paul photographing, filming dead bodies and putting it up and being offensive. And, again, what point do you draw the line? If that's acceptable to put up, is an ISIS beheading acceptable to put up on YouTube? I don't really think so. I hope not. But, I was wrong with this video, so I might be wrong with that. So, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think, it's something that needs to change. I understand. And I mean, when you talk about things like Adpocalypse and Adpocalypse 2, that was really caused by the Logan Paul incident, things like this will catalyst that. And I just, I don't know. I mean, obviously the Calgary Sun is a big organization. They probably don't terribly care about, they'll care some about the revenue that they pull in off their videos off YouTube, or something like that. But, at the end of the day, they don't care how they affect other creators. I mean, the fact that Logan Paul caused every single one of us to essentially, and I should throw some blame at PewDiePie there as well. But, some of these incidences over the past couple of years caused a bar to be set for a lot of us. That was difficult for some of us to achieve. It was a long road for myself to achieve. It's been impossible for some other people, and a lot of people are still working their way there. It's not an easy task. And I mean, generally speaking, it's punishing people that do good things and make good videos and, try to be helpful and try to be positive and try to put out good content there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of those terrible things, and I'm deeply, deeply disappointed. My thing is going off. Thanks, Pete. I'm just kind of seeing the tweets there coming up on my watch. So thanks for retweeting that, Pete. That is greatly appreciated. Who knows? It's again, to me, it's today. Yesterday was anger. Today's disappointment. I'll probably be something else tomorrow. But again, it's this is a platform that I choose to be on. And when I see stuff like this happen, I question the decisions being made. And I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it makes me wonder what kind of decisions are going to be made that are going to affect me, that are going to be absolutely ludicrous at, sort of the end of time. So sorry, I've been ignoring the comments. I've been doing that last couple days. I apologize for that. Just when I have a tendency to get going, I tend to ramble for 10-15 minutes and, don't, oh dear. So going back to the comments, Nick says, talk about bad actors. Thanks, Calgary Sun. Exactly. And, I feel the exact same way. It's, you're a big business. You really don't need YouTube. Well, they probably do, because Post Media has been in trouble for a long, long time. And to be honest, I mean, they need to reinvent themselves, because print media is dead. And if they don't, figure out a way to, sort of report the news, they're going to find themselves in a lot of trouble. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it definitely does not help the rest of us by all means. And I mean, to be honest, this whole time I have been trying to do this like super, super low key. I just, didn't want, people to run out and watch the video. I did not want people to, I didn't want a big circus around it. I didn't feel that was, sort of in the best interest of things, for what I was, ultimately trying to protect. And it just absolutely baffles me. And, yet it still remains there. So there you go. Pete says fake news. I wish it was fake news, Pete. It is stupid. Path says YouTube CEO 2018. Peter says nothing wrong with nipples and the path less traveled. We all got them. Exactly. And I mean, again, we know, that things like nudity is something that, they take very, very serious on YouTube. And, they're doing all sorts of things like demonetizing things like LGBTQ material and all sorts of stuff. It just makes you question really where they stand as an organization and what is acceptable. Because, to be honest, when you have something like that on, it just, kind of, makes me wonder. Craftsman's Cosplay says that's messed up, that they left that video up. It is absolutely messed up. Nick says, any big YouTubers would help. Tweet Casey Neistat, Philly D, H3H3, Joe Rogan. People need to get on this. I would agree. Seems I missed something catching up. Well, yeah, good to see you, Dan. Thanks for dropping in. Oh, I thought they took it down. No, they did not. I think you indicated yesterday they took it down, but it was absolutely not, because I did have it saved on my history list. I was able to go back, and it's definitely age gated. So it's really kind of, curious that is what has happened. So again, just super disappointed in that regards, and hopefully at some point they decide to take it down. Again, thanks, Pete. There we go. Hey, good to see you, Josh. Thanks for dropping in. So I'm going to just kind of leave it at that. Like I said, hopefully we'll get some attention there and get this thing taken down. But, that's kind of disappointing. So last night, moving to a positive note, last night was Greta Van Fleet. If you have not heard of Greta Van Fleet and you love rock and roll, you definitely need to check out these guys. They are kind of bringing back, that old Zeppelin-y sound, and they are heavily influenced by Led Zeppelin. It is very, very apparent, but, these guys are awesome. They are fantastic performers. They are super young. I think their lead singer is like 22 years old, and he has a phenomenal voice, and they just put on a great performance. They performed well beyond their years. It was a sold out show at the BMO. The place was packed. It was a good short set because they only have one album. They only played about 11 songs, but I mean, they drew things out with guitar solos and some other things. Fantastic performance. It was a good time. Everybody there. And one of the things I will notice is a lot of people have said, in the media and music that rock and roll is dead, or it's like jazz. It's just kind of hit a dead end, that it will never blossom again. These guys might breathe some life back into rock and roll music. It was interesting to see the crowd dynamic. There was definitely an older crowd present, in the sense that guys that, sort of my generation plus, that would have listened to things like Led Zeppelin and Robert Plant and, that kind of style of music, were definitely in attendance. But the front row was dominated by like teenage girls. There was a lot of young ladies there enjoying rock and roll. And I mean, obviously these guys are young. They're in their 20s. Good looking guys running around, 70s style, like with just a vest, no t-shirt, wearing a bunch of, crystals and hippie jewelry and feathers and all that kind of good stuff, sort of a homage to, that sort of 70s hippie kind of wear, 60s, 70s hippie wear. And they were having, sort of a fantastic time, and it was good to see. As a guy that loves rock and roll, a guy that loves kind of heavy metal that would now be probably considered rock by most people, it was good to see a nice young crowd taking in the music and loving it. It was funny when they first came out, they were throwing roses into the crowd. Girls were lapping it up. I mean, they've got that appeal to a younger audience, and that's going to definitely help them. I mean, this is really their first big album release. They don't have a big bank of songs. I know that they are actively working on stuff. I know they will be releasing an album soon. I know that anything these guys have released in the last little while is topping the charts, especially rock wise. I know that Reaper from CJ92 could not even get a sit down with these guys to talk with them. They don't have to do press because they are doing so absolutely fantastic. So it was really, really cool to see, these guys. And again, breathing life into rock, things kind of go full circle. Things will come back again, in my opinion. But they're breathing a little bit of life into rock. And for anybody who likes rock or feels that they were born in the wrong generation and love rock and roll, this might be a time for a little bit of a resurgence, as bands like this go on. And I mean, Calgary has their own very kind of, 70s, 60s, 70s influenced, the Static Shift, for those of you who have seen them, they were on the launch. They kind of fit into that spot. I'm kind of surprised that, they had Dorothy open, and she's fine. I don't mind her music, a little bluesy rock. They had her. She definitely commands a little bit more attention than, kind of some other bands. But I think that the Static Shift, honestly, would have been a perfect meld for them to open for them. I know that they would have played off each other really, really well. It's kind of unfortunate it didn't happen for those guys, but we will see in the future, because both of them, I would say both bands, have actually very, very bright futures. So there you go. So I'm going to jump back to the comments there. Check for my work YouTube. That's why I didn't see it. There you go. I think he's younger than that. I think he was 18 or 19. His parents went on tour with him over the summer. Who opened for them? Dorothy opened for them. So she's kind of a bluesy rocker. Like I said, her stuff is all right. But she's not my choice. I wouldn't go see Dorothy as a headliner personally. But everybody's taste is different. But she's a good singer, and she definitely can, she's a good performer as well, but just not my thing. Dan says it's the Led Zeppelin of the 21st century. Absolutely. He sounds phenomenally like Robert Plant. It was funny. I was talking to my friend Scott, who used to play for a band called the Smoky 45s. He was also in Cowpuncher. I would have grabbed the record if I know where. I didn't slide it in. I just actually got the record Hustle Cowpuncher on vinyl, which I'm super stoked about. Thanks again for that, Scott. I appreciate you dropping that off. But I was going somewhere with that. But we were talking about that, and he was talking about they interviewed the band. There was definitely an interview with the band, and they're saying, "Who is your influence?" And ultimately what they said was Aerosmith, which was kind of funny. And then they played it. Kind of played it to Robert Plant. There's a meme out there, and it's like, "Oh, who's your influence?" and all that kind of stuff. And of course, they have Robert Plant looking like, a little bit confused by it, but it's pretty funny though. They definitely very much influenced by Led Zeppelin. Scott says, I was talking with an A&R rep recently. Interesting. It's interesting because I didn't know A&R guys really kind of existed anymore. I'm sure they do, and I'm sure their job has changed immensely over the years. And he said labels are looking for heading back to rock music now. And that's good. That's good to know. So rock music is totally not dead. I agree, Craftsmith. Especially, Scott is definitely hooked in there, so he would definitely know. Peter says rock jazz is going through a renaissance or rebirth. I can only hope. And Scott says it was an encouraging conversation, which is good to hear, and it's, I personally am a huge, again, rock fan. I've never really kind of deviated from that, and I'll be glad to hear a lot of new sort of rock music come out and all those kind of things. So it was an encouraging conversation. Josh says, you got some great shots last night, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. All my shots are up on social media, and then there's some subsequent links where you can go check out some other stuff. So all that stuff last night was taken with the Sony a7 III. I did not bring my Canon camera. I just totally went with the Sony. I picked up a Tamron 28 to 28 to 75 lens, a native lens for the Sony prior to the show, because they called me. It's one of those things. There's two unicorns in this world right now. One is the Sony a7 III. The other one is a Tamron 28 to 75, because it is a f2.8 lens that runs at about $1,100 versus the G lens series, which is about $3,000 for a 2.8, and it goes 24 to 70, just a little bit wider range and a little less reach. Although I will say that, they're probably not very comparable lens wise otherwise. So anyways, I utilize that lens for the show. And I'm sure there are some people that are very, very interested to know how it sort of performed. Obviously, if you've seen the pictures, you know how it performs. Can the Sony a7 III handle a concert? The answer is yes. Can it handle a bad light concert? The answer is sort of. Dorothy was very poorly lit, and I took some photographs there, and it was very difficult. It misfocused a lot. It didn't perform very, very well. I feel that even my Canon 5D Mark III would perform lots better in that situation. That being said, that the photos that I did get of Greta Van Fleet, because they were very well lit, they were sharp. They were tack sharp. They were clean. Very, very good. It just worked really, really well. And again, in a concert situation as well, I found that I shot less. I took less shots than I would normally. There is a bit of weirdness with the viewfinder, in the sense that you can see everything. So you do see the light changes. It kind of weirds me out a little bit because I'm so used to looking through an optical and seeing exactly what's going on, but it doesn't feel as weirdly drastic. Like there's a bit of flicker that goes on because it is such a crazy amount of light. And, I have things like zebras to make sure that I don't blow out certain sections of the image, but it can definitely handle it. You can use it as that. You could use it as a concert camera. Like I said, I went through it. I didn't really have a problem, but, at the end of the day, is it any different? Would anybody recognize if I told them that it was a Sony a7 III or I didn't use my Canon 5D Mark III? If you look at my images, you're probably like, that's just JD shooting. That's how it is. I mean, it is a good camera. It is a good stills camera. Is it the best stills camera? I don't think so. But you know, where it obviously shines as well is as a hybrid shooter. It is a phenomenal video camera. So I mean, obviously, if you're a hybrid shooter, it will definitely work well for you. You know. So it's interesting that way. It's you know, I'm not going to get rid of the 5D Mark III any time soon. I will probably put that back into concert service this Friday. I'll probably take the 5D Mark III out versus the Sony to do that, which you know, is a switch, just because I want to make sure 100%, because I am definitely in a super low light situation, or I might bring out both cameras. So, you know, it's a good camera. It's definitely small with the 28-75, the Tamron. It is very, very small. It is a very small lens. I did notice some weirdness in the corners when I was shooting. And in fact, when I was going back, I took a couple shots of the Calgary Tower with the camera. And essentially there was some weirdness in the corners, some vignetting, and just kind of a little optical kind of flare that kind of got weird if you caught the light in the right way. So it flares kind of weird, which is not uncommon for zoom lenses, to be honest, but I definitely noticed that. But my one big bitch last night, was it's a mirrorless camera and the dust. So I have hardly switched lenses because I don't have a lot of lenses. I have the adapter, so I can use Sigma and Canon lenses. I've swapped lenses a few times, and I tell you, last night I had to clean the camera because it was filthy, and I had one piece of dust, and I noticed it when I was shooting. I was noticing it in the optical viewfinder. I'm like, do I have a dead pixel? Do I have something on my lens? So I gave a quick, you know, wipe of the lens. It wasn't on the lens. I gave a quick wipe in the optical viewfinder. It still remained there. It was, in fact, a big piece of dust that got somehow sucked into the camera and, you know, done. So I had to clean the camera, and I haven't even had this thing I've had it for a month, which is pretty shitty because I've only cleaned my Canon 5D Mark III in years once. So, you know, that was my biggest complaint about mirrorless. And the thing is you can't do anything about it. Like, and I mean, piece was obviously bad enough that, you know, I could do it. I mean, obviously maybe I should be bringing two cameras and not relying on it 100% like I did last night. That was kind of the stress test. And to me, it failed a little bit in those regards, but you know, you definitely see it from time to time. Anybody who shoots with a Sony a7 III, I've watched videos and I can see the specs, and it's very, very noticeable to me. But I mean, that kind of stuff jumps out at me very, very fast. So there you go. Peter says rock and roll ain't no noise pollution. There you go. Nick says, I don't get the hype around the Static Shift. Not that they aren't cool dudes. I don't really like their music. I don't think it's really rock at all. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, they're a kind of bluesy rock band. They're not very hard rock. It's not a kind of a fast-paced rock. So I do get that. You know, they have done really well. They're tight as musicians, and again, they are super, super young. You know, a lot of times these guys were playing before they kind of went on to the launch. They were playing places like the Blues Can, and you know, they're underage, so they had to play and leave kind of thing. And it's, you know, but I just appreciate that young people, you know, listen to rock and roll and play it. I think that's, for me, that's the biggest thing, is that people aren't going to, you know, give up on rock, which is absolutely fantastic. Hey, good to see you, Divid King. Thanks for dropping in. Picked up a Rode video mic for my buddy. Picked up a Rode video mic for his DSLR. Getting closer to vlog time. Got it off a garage sale. And it has a Sony A535, I think. Do you know what Rode he picked up? I'm just curious. Dan says, just looking at that lens, wow, I want that lens. Yeah, I mean, it's decent. It's not. The Tamron lens is good. It's kind of like that critical mass. Like when we were talking about cameras the other day, and we were talking about, you know, buying expensive cameras or using point and shoots, and that, you know, there's kind of a noticeable difference up to a point, and then you're spending a lot of money to get small increments of thing. I think Tamron lands in a nice sweet spot in the sense that it is affordable as far as lenses go. I mean, it is a third of the price of, the Sony G glass, which, like I said, is a big lens and a fantastic piece of glass. But, for the price and the size, and I mean, kind of in the mirrorless game, kind of the whole thing about it is to downsize the size of your kit. And I don't feel that's going to happen in a lot of cases, but in this case, it has worked out very, very well. I feel that, some of the issues that I saw last night in the Tamron is because this lens is essentially, especially at its, sort of wider points, is, really kind of maybe just barely filling the sensor. Is part of its problem. But again, I'm not saying it's a bad lens. It is like super sharp. For somebody to pick that up and have that part of the thing, it would be a fantastic, fantastic lens to have. Again, it was able to do the job last night, and that's what I need my equipment to do. And, it did a good job of it. So, it is really super awesome. Scott says, I'd be curious to hear your comparison between Grandson's show last week and the Greta show last night. Okay. That's fair. So for those of you, and Josh in here, we went to Grandson last week. Again, thanks to X929. So my friends at X929 comped me some tickets to Grandson. They were awesome enough to do that. So Josh and I went to go watch. That was also a sellout show. Grandson is... he's an interesting character. I like him a lot. I like his personality a lot. I like the fact that he's got something to say, and then he's kind of, mixed a bunch of stuff. I mean, I wouldn't call him rock. I wouldn't call him rap. I wouldn't call him, he's just kind of blended a lot of things. I wouldn't call him electronic. He's just kind of melded a lot of stuff. What I like about Grandson especially is that he has some things to say. He wants to be heard. There is a definite message behind his music, and I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards him. My big critique of Grandson is that I wish he was a little more angry. I want him to be angrier. He seems pretty happy-go-lucky in a sense in some of his mannerisms. I'd like to see him a little more angry. If he was a little more angry, a little more Rage the Machine, because I kind of feel that he kind of, gets into that space, I think he would blow up huge. And I'm not saying that he's not blowing up now. I'm just saying that, to me, that's if he had that little bit more of an edge, maybe he's a little more edgy, it would definitely help him. That being said, that the show at the Rec Room was phenomenal. It was sold out. The room was packed. He had the crowd going. They were bouncing, they were into it. He was singing, they were singing along, songs like Blood in the Water. People were chanting along with it, waving their arms. I mean, he had basically full room participation, which was phenomenal to see. It worked really, really well for the size of the venue and the amount of people who were there. I generally prefer a smaller venue, packed to the nuts if I'm going to go watch a concert. I don't like working in those conditions. I hate it. But I love going to see a show like that, if that makes sense. I like being in there. A lot of times I would go to smaller clubs in Seattle and it was mayhem. Same thing, going to, places back in the day like the Commodore in Vancouver, again, packed to the nuts. Although the Commodore is quite large, essentially just a little more thing. The Republic, another perfect example of that. That place used to get packed to the nuts. Absolutely phenomenal place to watch a band, and have, sort of fans that are bouncing off the walls. It's phenomenal. Grandson achieved that. And, there is no doubt in my mind that kid will go places if he continues to write music and continues to say what he wants to say. I think, people, as they discover him, he will move up. I mean, he's got what, 4 or 5 songs on Spotify, and that's kind of it. But he's making grounds because, again, like I said, he's got that right combination. And from what I understand, he's a super chill, nice dude, full of good energy and kind of happy. So I mean, good. In comparison, Greta Van Fleet, I mean, that place was also packed, but in a different way because it was the BMO. The capacity is a little bit different. So, I mean, there was a lot of empty space around the crowd, around the stage. It's kind of weird with those shows in there, how that works. Again, sort of the proportion of people we definitely had some very old and some very young individuals. Like I said, the front row was dominated by young girls, pretty much. And they're definitely there to, swoon over these guys, sort of the teenage crush kind of thing. And again, phenomenal performance, and the crowd was super, super into it. Definitely not as engaged as Grandson in the sense that, they weren't singing along and jumping up and down and all that kind of stuff, but it was a rock show, and rock show, mannerisms were definitely present there. So, all that kind of stuff. I think they're just on 2 different levels currently is kind of how it is. But I mean, club shows like Grandson are absolutely fantastic to watch when they are put on like that. It's probably one of the best shows that I've seen in a while at the Rec Room there. And, I mean, the Rec Room, you guys know I like the place. They're extremely nice to me. They've caught me some stuff in the past, just to be fully transparent there. But essentially, like I said, it was a good show, and I'm sure Josh, I think he enjoyed himself as well and thought that was a fantastic show as well. So, I mean, again, super, super cool. Josh says it would be cool if Rock was king again. I agree. Nick says, my take on Rock being king is not cool to be a rock star anymore. That crown goes to hip hop, rap, EDM party guys. Rock stars are too tame now. Yoga and tea wouldn't be sad. That's good. And that is fairly valid. I mean, it's been a long time since guys have, like the lead singer of, Blind Melon Shannon Hoon, urinated on the front crowd when he opened for Lenny Kravitz in Vancouver. It's been a long time since, a crowd has rioted because Axl Rose didn't show up for his concert in Vancouver. So the fans decided to break shit. A lot of the bad boys of rock and roll, sort of all the old Motley Crue stories, and, a lot of the guys like, Kiss and all these kind of older rock bands and the crazy stuff that they had going on, doesn't really, I think, exist, as Nick indicates, anymore. Definitely if you look at rap and you look at some of the content, not all the content, I mean, there are so many kind of different genres within rap. I mean, there is definitely more a lifestyle thing that appeals to people, fast cars, girls and money, booze and drugs, and I would agree that, they take the crown in the, sort of, kings of, music kind of thing at this time. EDM, I think, has slowly descended into not being as significant, although there are still some big guys like Marshmallow Heads and a couple other ones. But, those big dance parties that you used to see in Las Vegas all the time, also those big EDM shows that used to come through town, are not as prevalent anymore. So, it's very, very interesting. Nick says Rock needs his balls back. And I would agree. There definitely needs to be some of that. But, if you look at how society has changed, how things are, sort of completely different now than they were then. I mean, we are very, kind of, we watch what we say. We're very politically correct. Inappropriate behavior is frowned upon very, quickly. Everybody's sort of quick to react. There's sort of that social media backlash. I'm not sure how rock and roll would do if you had some bad boys of rock go and basically burn every town that they go through, wrecking hotels and, pillaging and all sorts of stuff and getting drunk and, ending up in hospital and all, all the things that rock stars are notorious for, how that would, sort of translate in today's day and age. I wonder how that would, go along. And I wonder if that's why, as Nick put it, they're now yoga and tea guys. It's over that. And I mean, definitely when you look at a band like Greta Van Fleet, they are definitely more that kind of hippie stage, where it's like peace, love, all that kind of stuff. They've still got that, kind of bluesy edge to them. It's not, in your face, smash it, pick 6 girls out of the front row, get them to the back kind of rock and roll, which a lot of people knew as well. Josh says, grandson rules, man. I would agree. Craftsman says, grandson puts on a killer show. Saw him during the Stampede this year. That was actually, where I first saw him as well. It's where I first photographed him. And I have to again thank Scott from the Path Less Traveled for that. Initially, when I do Stampede, I go usually every day. Sometimes I will take a day off, and a lot of times I'll show up later and kind of skip a couple acts, just because I'm not interested personally, or they're completely off my radars at the Stampede, and that's just given, a lot of that is given to the atmosphere and the crowd that was put on there. So absolutely fantastic. So there you go. Nick says, got to run, buddy. Great stream. Keep rocking. See you next time. Cheers. Thanks for dropping in, Nick. Divot King, cheers. Have a good one. Great job. Awesome. So that's kind of really where we're at. I've rambled on for 45 minutes today, which is kind of a long time. This is becoming synonymous now with a stream. Something that was usually like 15 to 20 minutes to maybe a half hour if I was really talkative, has definitely gone on to longer and longer talks. But like, again, I mean, some of the stuff that talked about warranted, a fair bit of time to be talked about. But yeah, I mean, again, if you're looking for a mirrorless camera, will Sony a7 III suffice? Absolutely, it is a good camera. If you're a concert photographer, is the Sony a7 III the camera that you want to buy? You can definitely do it with it, but I am still kind of a little hesitant to fully recommend it, in the sense that I think that, things like if you're specifically doing concerts and doing photos, things like the Nikon D850 or D750, the Canon 5D Mark III or 4 are probably, just as good, if not better. You're going to get that image quality out of there. So it's, definitely, a way to look. If you are obviously a person that does both video and stills, then I would put heavy consideration on it, especially if you lean more to video, because it's the video has been really, really good. And I have no complaints there. Unfortunately, I only photographed for 2 songs last night for Greta Van Fleet, so I didn't get any video footage. I kind of really wanted to. I especially wanted to try out the slow-mo there, and I wanted to get some 4K just to see how it looks, just so I could kind of, judge how things are and see how a native lens worked in terms of video for the camera itself. Which I imagine would work relatively fine. So Craftsman says, it makes my work day more interesting watching the stream. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad that I can definitely help you through that. Essentially, my work day has ended already. Tonight I was supposed to actually work Sam Smith. That got canceled, so I have absolutely zero on the agenda at this point, other than maybe clean up the mess that is my office that I continually look at and continually sort of complain about here, because it is hella messy. But also, just as a reminder, for those of you who are still remaining here, we do have the Photo Rock. I hopefully will see you there. I know I've recognized a couple names now that have signed up in Eventbrite, so it's cool. We're going this Saturday, 6 p.m. Bow Building. We're going to get everything from B-roll. And if you haven't checked out Josh's B-roll footage of Ogden, I recommend you do that because it's kind of cool. Tweeted that out today as well. It's cool. I think his plan is to do that on Saturday as well. So it's kind of awesome. And that's kind of the whole point of these things, is to create something and have something at the end of it, whether it be photographs, whether it be film, whether it be a combination of both, have social media stuff, and just have a good time and meet a bunch of new people. And I know I'm going to meet a bunch of new people because there is a bunch of people that signed up that I have never seen their names before. And, you know, that was super cool to see that. Also, I just want to say congratulations to Benny. Benny, a friend of mine, he started doing photography, I think, kind of around Stampede time. Got his first show, big show, Greta Van Fleet last night. So congratulations to Benny. His stuff is on my Instagram. You can check that out. I mean, obviously, all my Instagram stuff at Paint Inc. Craftsman says, can't wait for the photo walk this weekend. Neither can I. The only thing that scares me is that the forecast is miserable. But, you know, there is always, that's the beauty about Calgary and downtown. There's always kind of the plus 15. Puddles make nice reflections. It's night and there's lights. So, I mean, we'll figure some stuff out. We will definitely get some cool shots and some cool footage, or make a vlog, or whatever we do. We will figure something out along the way, but looking forward to it as a whole. So as I am now pushing on the hour mark for this stream, I just want to say thanks for everybody who has stuck around this entire stream to listen to me ramble on about everything that I do ramble on in these daily live streams. Again, thanks again for tuning in. If you are still here, please smash that like button. It does help the video so much. And again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Tomorrow, last stream of the week. And then, of course, I will see those of you who come out on Saturday. Then I've got 1 week of streaming left. And then, again, it will be sporadic. So do check that bell button. Put on notifications. I will probably try to do some live streams from Singapore when I'm there. And I don't know how that translates time-wise and when they're going to come up, or when I'm even going to have time to necessarily fit it in. But I will probably do some live streams over there. So if you do happen to get notifications at weird hours, that's probably what's happening. I will probably be either in the hotel eating food or doing something crazy, but just having generally a good time. The nice thing is I have found, if you're ever going to Singapore and Malaysia, you can get a SIM card, just for your information, and this will probably be a video later on. You get a SIM card for like $25. You get 100 gigs of data. It's ridiculous. $25, 100 gigs, unlimited local calling, all sorts of stuff. As a traveler, it's insane. It just goes to show you how badly our Canadian telecom sucks in comparison, when I can buy that for $25 without a contract and just walk around and shove this thing in my phone. So there you go. So watch out for those. Thanks again, guys. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share this video, all this kind of stuff. I'm JD. I'm here every day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And until next time, see ya.